There is enough space for everyone. There's enough space for all personalities. There's enough spaces for all these opinions. Coming across as yourself and coming across as someone that is worth listening to and worth remembering, actually, it requires a lot more thought and strategy behind it than you think. And instead of thinking, what if people judge me? What if we ask ourselves, whose opinion actually matters to my success?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to HeartFull podcast. I'm excited to have Beth, a personal branding expert and founder of Orchid Marketing. She helps people communicate their value and unlock growth opportunities by making personal branding simple, natural, and aligned with their unique strength. Hi, Beth. I'm so excited to have you on. How are you?
Hi, Sally. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. I'm doing good.
So, Beth, I met you at an event where you're having this amazing workshop. And I think we just chatted like that. It happened so organically. But for the first minute, I was like, okay, it seems like she knows what she's doing, knows where she's headed, which is the most important when it comes to building and creating opportunities for yourself. So, Beth, can you tell us a bit more about yourself? How did you start? How did that all come to be about today?
Yeah, would love to. So basically, Orchid initially started out as a social media management agency. So I would help other business owners with managing their social media. Through that process, I realized that even though I had a background in marketing in corporate, marketing your own business and specifically marketing yourself is so much harder than you think. And it's so much easier said than done. It feels completely unnatural. It feels completely weird and very strange to set up a camera and talk to it as if it was a friend or as if it was, someone that you knew. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect in this because I still struggle with it today, but coming across as yourself and coming across as someone that is worth listening to and worth remembering, actually, it requires a lot more thought and strategy behind it than you think. And I learned the hard way what it's like to not have a personal brand. So I'll tell you a quick story about how I learned that. So I was invited to a meeting with other senior female leaders, and I hadn't started Orchid very long after I was invited. I think maybe Orchid was like a month old. And so I was invited to this meeting, and it was the first time that I felt like I was being recognized. And there were if they weren't business owners, they were like very established. So I immediately accept the invitation and I show up on the day. I go sit down, and there's a woman to the left of me who we're having some small talk, and then it's time for introductions. I noticed that she was writing everyone's name and titles down, as you do when you want to follow up with people after an event. But when it came to my turn to introduce myself, she didn't pick up her pen. It was like, what? Like, what is going on? And at the time, it was a huge knock to my confidence because I was like, okay, clearly I'm an imposter here. Clearly I am not meant to be in rooms like this. The meeting had just started and I basically already wanted to leave. But then I started to think, why? Why was she not interested in me? What was it about what I said that made her not want to take notice or not want to take my details, basically? I found the answer to that question when I went home because I looked up everyone on that list that she had written down. And I saw they were really easy to find. They all had like an active presence online. They were all like easy to find on LinkedIn. They had written articles. They had I think a couple of them had like written books or something. Like they were very well established, and it was very clear from this research why they were worth listening to, why they sort of mattered in a way. And I think because of that, they came across differently the way that I did. Because I didn't feel like I'd necessarily said anything different or I introduced myself in a different way. But there's an inherent confidence and an inherent way of communicating yourself and what you do and why you're worth remembering and how you want to build these connections with people that only comes when you are very strategic and thoughtful about all of those things. When I realized that was missing for me, I decided, okay, I need to do something about that, and I need to make sure that never happens to me again. So I did the same thing. I got to work. I started posting on LinkedIn. I started putting myself out there. pitching myself for opportunities that would help grow this online presence so that it could also feed into my offline presence. And that has been a really, really amazing journey, but it's also been a very difficult journey. A lot of personal branding is understanding you, your potential, and most importantly, it's also how you help other people see your potential and how they might be able to help you achieve that.
Now, I would love for us to dive into personal branding and authenticity. I think a lot of us, including myself, when we start on our journey of personal branding, we have all these to-do lists. How do you make sure that when you're building your personal brand, you're still authentic and real to who you truly are?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And it's something that I don't think anyone has ever really got this formula or this way, because being authentic to yourself means that there's not necessarily like a one way fits all, one size fits all approach, right? But for me, what has really worked is figuring out things about my personality, the things that I like, the things that I want to put out there that people can connect with. So, what is it about myself that if I had to look at, people in my DMs or people in my comments or people that I meet at networking events, what would I want to connect with them on? And then work backwards. So for me, that's the fact that, I live in London, but I'm not from London. The fact that I'm mixed race, so I have that sort of like dual heritage, and I can understand both sides of the culture that I belong to, and can empathize with people and relate to them over that. I love to read. I love to go to co-working cafes and work from there because I mostly work from home. And so there are things that you would look back at yourself and look back at the way that you would love to connect with more people over. And then how can you bring that to your online or offline?
Relatability is definitely the key word here. I feel like we are so focused on what we're offering that we kind of are forgetting that we are dealing with humans like us. They might have the same
Exactly.
hobbies. So yeah, that's
Exactly.
that's a really good tip. I'm definitely taking it with
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
writing it down.
Perfect. Yeah, and it's I think you made a really good point there actually. It's a human at the end of the day that you're connecting with, and of that piece of content on the receiving end of your conversation, on the receiving end of your words and your thoughts. And so, how can you speak to that person? What are your values? What parts of your personality do you think would connect with them and make them feel seen and heard? And what things are you passionate about? Or if it's not connecting with them, it's how can you maybe help them solve a problem they might have been dealing with? How can you help them see something from a different perspective? These are some of the things that I think help bring in your authenticity in a way that is still contributing to like your overall goals and what you want out of your personal brand, but at the same time still feels like you.
How do you feel like shy people can actually get past that step? Because I hear a lot of people around me are actually really willing to put themselves out there, but they say that they are shy. I am personally big up on affirmation. To me, whatever you put out there, you become. So if I
Absolutely.
am shy and I decide that I do not want to be shy, then I say I am not shy. Therefore, I am not. That's my one-sided solution. But as a personal branding expert, what is your advice on that?
Yeah. So I will start this with a quote that I love and that has helped me so much with getting sort of out of my own way, which is you suffer more in the imaginary than you do in reality.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, it is just in your head. And I think also a lot of people recognize that it is just a sort of irrational fear. As you said, a lot of people are willing to put themselves out there, but they tell themselves, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm not enough this, or I'm not enough that. I guess I want everyone to realize that there is enough space for everyone. There's enough space for all personalities. There's enough spaces for all these opinions, for better or for worse. Obviously, sometimes you do get very extreme views as well. But ultimately, there are going to be people that can connect with you because you're you, because of the way that you think, because of your values and your opinions and your thoughts. But to be sort of more strategic and go deeper into this, I think there's actually two helpful ways that someone who is maybe feeling a little bit hesitant or really sort of wants to put themselves out there, but for some reason there's something that's blocking them. The first thing is actually sort of creating an alter ego. If you want to assume this identity of I'm a confident person, but you don't feel like that necessarily, how can you become this confident Sasha Fierce in your own life? Like, it's almost like fake it till you make it, but actually it's a bit more strategic than that, because it's something that you can assume, and it's something that you can sort of like use to your advantage, and also take on and off when you're not feeling like you want to be your alter ego. So I think having an alter ego is an interesting idea, and it's something that I've definitely had to do sometimes, especially when I go on stage and I speak and I do my public speaking. Sometimes I don't feel like it, but then I have to assume this identity of I am a public speaker. I am someone that can use my words for good, that can impact people. I am someone that knows what they're talking about. And again, this kind of goes back to your affirmations idea of maybe it doesn't have to go all the way to an alter ego, but it's just a sort of alternate identity that you can feel comfortable with assuming. And then the second thing that I personally love and that I've used over and over and over again, and something that I teach, is reframing your thoughts into questions that can provide solutions. So another great quote by Tim Ferriss, who is the author of the 4 Hour Work Week, quite a popular book, I guess, in the passive income space. But Tim Ferriss in general said before that often all that stands between you and what you want is a better set of questions. And I think it's really true, because if we think about these negative thoughts, so for example, what if people judge me? That's a negative thought, negative mindset that a lot of people have. And instead of thinking, what if people judge me? What if we ask ourselves, whose opinion actually matters to my success? If these people judge me, what happens next? And then we start to unravel it, start to think, okay, actually, I am the only one that really cares about my success, or me and my friends and my family. If I can make them proud, or if I can make them happy with the progress that I'm making or the things that I'm doing, if anyone else judges me, if anyone else is mean to me, will that actually matter? Maybe it's you don't necessarily want to start recording yourself, but maybe you feel more confident and comfortable writing out your thoughts instead. So it's just asking yourself questions until you find those solutions, so that you can actually then figure out a way of moving forward, instead of just thinking I can't do it and that's it, that's the end of the conversation, even though you really want to. As you were saying there, affirmations and quotes have definitely really, really helped me in the past with moving towards a more positive mindset. It's normal to be critical about yourself, by the way. I'm definitely not saying that I don't ever criticize myself, that I don't ever have bad days, but I can confidently say I have more good days now, more positive days than I used to. But something that's helped me think more positively is actually something I learned recently, which is thinking in the gain versus thinking in the gap. A good way of explaining this is through like your to-do list. Say you have 5 things that you wanted to check off on your to-do list today, and you only do 3. If you're thinking in the gap, you're thinking, I didn't get those 2 things done today. I'm so shit. I'm going to make myself feel really bad and feel really down about not getting everything that I wanted to done today. How many times have we, I'm sure that you can relate to that as well. Like how many times
Definitely.
you make yourself feel bad for not achieving those 2 things. Thinking in the gain is saying, okay, I acknowledge I didn't complete those 2 things, but look at all of the progress, look at all of the things that I was able to achieve. So looking at your life in general, but also looking at when you are going down that maybe more critical route, looking in the gain as opposed to in the gap is a really nice way of training yourself to think more positively, and to also give yourself credit and kudos more often. I think we don't tend to do that enough as well, of recognizing how far we've come as well, and how much literally we've been able to gain.
What are some common challenges that you face when it came to building your personal brand, making the right connections, and also making sure that you're helpful enough?
I think the first mistake that I made was having all of these assumptions about personal branding and thinking that I had to show up or do the same things as everyone else was doing, because it's natural and normal to think, okay, if I do the similar things, or if I copy the things that other successful people are doing, that will make me successful as well, right? Unfortunately, that's not always how it goes. And one of the things that I started doing at the beginning was posting for kind of posting's sake and not really having an idea of what I wanted to put myself out there as, what I wanted to be known as, and what ultimately my end goal was. So now might be a good time actually for me to go through my framework, because I think this will help answer a lot of the things that go wrong, or at least the mistakes that people have when it comes to their personal branding. The first thing is knowing what your goal is. Ask you, one of the things that you might say is, I want to build a community of people who really like me. Okay, why do you want to build a community? Because I want people to sign up to my newsletter or something. Because I want people to come on my podcast. Okay, why do you want people to come onto your podcast? Well, I want to monetize my podcast one day. Why do you want to monetize your podcast one day? Because then I want to become a full-time podcaster and start my own podcasting or like media business. So we've just gone from building a community to this actual goal that you have, which is to become an entrepreneur. That obviously might not be your experience or what you want out of building this podcast, but for a lot of people, what they say is their goal actually isn't necessarily the truth of their goal. And so it takes some time, and it takes some asking questions, and it takes some understanding your motivations to really figure out what your goal is. It could be something as simple as, I want to build my personal brand so I can stand out in job interviews and that makes it easier for me to get a job. That's also fine. But I think it's important to probe and understand what your goals are, so that you can start playing the right games and start being strategic in the right way. So that's the first step, is really understanding your goals. And the next thing, which also kind of feeds into the goal idea, is, what do you want to be known for? Now, again, this is something that I think a lot of people will mistake when it comes to personal branding. They think that they have to be known for one thing and one thing only. So you think you have to have just the one niche, right? I don't think that that is true. I don't think that that's necessary. But we do have to think about this still in a strategic way that is going to help you achieve your end goal. So, the way that I like to think about what you want to be known for is creating something that I call the association tree. If we think about a tree, it has a trunk and branches, right? The trunk is sort of the main topic of your personal brand, what you want to be known for the most. This is what is tied directly to your end goal. That would be personal branding, because my end goal is for people to see me as a personal branding expert, that I establish myself as an expert, the more it comes back to me and benefits my business. But then we have the branches, which are like the subtopics of your personal brand. These are the things that give you depth and flexibility, but also gives you more things that you can connect with your audience over. I had mentioned earlier in the podcast, I love sharing what I'm reading. I love sharing cafes that I'm going to and make little review videos of cafes that I visited, because I think it's useful if you are kind of getting a bit cabin fever, if you work from home mostly, or if you just want to switch up where you're working that day. It's nice to know what cafes are good for working in. So I like to share that with my audience, because then someone can comment or pop up on my story or send me a DM. And it just creates points of connection and, most importantly, points of conversation, because you never know where that conversation is going to go. And you never know who that person knows. Now, they might be connected with you for whatever reason, but they might not necessarily remember that you are a personal branding expert. But by opening up that conversation and by opening up that sort of path to speaking to them, you're more memorable in their mind, because you have something that you can already relate to them on. Again, we were talking about relatability. So that's the second part. And then the final thing is, who do you want in your audience? Who do you need to have in your circle? So, for example, as an entrepreneur, it makes sense for me to be connected with people that I think would be good clients of mine or potential clients of mine. If you're wanting to use your personal brand to get further in your career, maybe, if you wanted to move into a different industry, you'd want to start connecting with and building your network of people in that industry that you want to move into. So it's not just about you and your potential, it's also about how other people see your potential and how they can help you get there too.
What is the most popular question that you get when you're running workshops or with your clients?
Ooh, most popular question. Probably the accountability. Like, how do you actually do it? I can give you all of this information, but after this workshop, after listening to this podcast, it's kind of what I had said at the event that I spoke at where we met, right? Of after this, you have two choices. You can choose to take action and do and make steps towards creating a personal brand that can benefit you, or you can also choose, because it is still a choice, to do nothing and to keep waiting in the background, waiting for the right time. By the way, you've been waiting for the right time this whole time, and there's very clearly no right time because you haven't done anything. So it's that, I think, that accountability that people really struggle with. How do you get out of your own way? I think that's probably the biggest and most asked question.
Talking about accountability, I feel like people can have all the accountability in the world, but sometimes it's even deeper than that. It's just the fear of being seen. Do you have any tips on how someone can get over that?
For me, the biggest thing has been to take the emotion out of it and to stop judging yourself on things you can't necessarily control. For example, one of the things that I've struggled with and that I continue to struggle with is when I record myself, when I create content, I tend to like to have my hair done, my makeup done. That is what helps, when we're talking about the conditions that make you more confident or more comfortable. But that also means I sometimes have an idea to film something or to say something, and I don't, because I'm like, oh, I can obviously put my hair and makeup on, but is that going to change the message that I'm giving? Is that going to give it more impact? No. So why should it matter that much? Okay, so let's instead just go for it and see what happens. For me, really the only thing that I'm judging myself on with this podcast or with my workshops or when I'm speaking to clients is, am I being helpful? Am I giving them actions to take? And am I explaining it in a way that helps them see from a different perspective, or helps them see that actually personal branding doesn't have to be this huge, complicated thing? And if I can look back on this podcast and think, yes, I did all of those three things, then I'm not even going to entertain the idea of how my hair looked or how my makeup looked or whether or not I was wearing makeup or not, or whatever it is. That is what I judge myself on. I never ever go on TikTok, for example, and if I see someone who's not wearing makeup, I never think, why are they not wearing makeup? That's never something I think. I'm always just concerned essentially about what are they saying and how can it help me? And so that's kind of that idea of judging yourself on the things that are actually constructive, like, is my message having impact? Am I helping people with this information? And it's not even just helping them, but it can also be like, did I make them laugh? Did I make them happy? Instead of how you look or the things that, don't actually contribute to the overall impact of the message. That, I think, is how you practice getting over your fear of being seen.
For someone who is a complete beginner and has no idea what to do and feels so overwhelmed, what would you tell them right now?
I think when you can really understand what you want to be known for, what your goals are, who you need to be connected with, and also those things of what's holding you back, then you can really start to take those necessary steps. One other thing that I would add to that, and something that I like to remind people often, is visibility is just as important as ability. And it is important to be good at what you do. Don't let anyone tell you that hard work doesn't speak for itself. It does, but only if the right people are listening. So if you can prioritize visibility and making sure that people know what you are good at, you will find it so much easier to reach your goals and to find success through your personal brand. The final thing I'd say is you have to just start. You have to just go for it. Nothing will ever happen if you don't take action. You can listen to every single podcast episode out there about personal branding. You can have all of this information, but none of it will matter if you don't take action. So again, it is taking action in that first post, that first piece of content, that first networking event, that first conversation you have with someone, and then it just builds and builds and builds from that.
Would you have a not to do list when it comes to personal branding?
I've been asked that before. Well, the first thing that came to mind was, don't copy other people. Unfortunately, someone else's experience might not be your experience, right? Like, it might be true for them. It might have worked for them. Doesn't mean it's going to work for you. It's really important to test and try and figure out as early as possible what is going to work for you. For me and my business, for example, I thought if I just posted content, that was my only way of getting in front of customers. And yes, it did work. It did bring in customers. But actually, what I've realized works best is pitching myself, cold emailing people, and doing these in person workshops. That's completely different from doing content. And actually, my content is still important, but if I didn't ever post ever again, my business would still grow because I had those things that would still help me and my business. To wrap it up, just because something is someone's experience doesn't mean it will be yours. So you just need to figure out what works for you. The second thing is what I like to call productivity, which is like fake productivity. It's a coping mechanism where you think if I try and learn as much as I can, then I will know what to do. But actually, again, this is one of those things that is a hard truth. You don't know what is actually required of you until you're on that path. Learn a piece of information and act on it.
Right.
And then the third thing, just not taking action. The hardest step is always the first step. Not only is the first step the hardest, and once you do that, by the time you post your 100th piece of content, it doesn't feel like any work at all. So why would you not want to get as close to that as quickly as possible? So yeah, those three things of doing too much research, not taking action, and thinking that you have to copy what other people are doing.
I specifically love that bit of over consuming, especially now we have access to so much information. I've definitely been there. I'm learning it even on this process in this podcast right now. If you know the amount of information I've overconsumed. It's ridiculous. Like I've overconsumed and it's just so overwhelming. If you're like me, you want to know everything to make sure you're ready. The truth is you're never ready enough. The whole point is to just go for it. Start and let things unfold naturally. We learn as we go. So thank you so much for sharing those. I'm sure it will be so helpful.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of those things where you think the more that you know, like as you said, the more ready you'll feel. But actually, the more that you learn, you realize you actually don't know anything at all.
Exactly.
And so it's just this constant cycle of learning and learning and learning.
Turning it into a new angle now, how do you stay grounded? What is the best way for you?
I have a partner who will humble me at any given moment, so that helps. You know, I'm reminded of this story of, I think it was in the Greek times, maybe Roman times. Anyway, it was a long time ago, where, you know, like the emperor of that place, if they won a battle, say, or they won a war, and they would be pulled through town and all their people would be cheering them on and, you know, celebrating them basically and how amazing they are. Someone behind them, there would always be someone placed behind them saying to them memento mori, which means one day you will die. I know that sounds very grim, it's like taking a very dark turn, but I think this idea of you have no idea when it's your last day, and I would hate to leave this earth and for someone to think about me in a way where I didn't help other people. I didn't serve other people. I didn't give when I could have. And I think that humbles me. So I always just try and think of, am I helping them see that things like confidence, things like talking about yourself, things like networking, all of these things are really, really, really important. And you were put on this earth for a reason. That is what keeps me humble.
I could not agree more. It was an amazing conversation. Honestly, I'm so honored that you've taken the time to sit down and share everything that you've learned. I'm definitely taking a lot with me, and whoever is listening, I am sure that these are practical tips that are going to help you get started. But like you said, just go for it. So thank you so much, Beth. I am looking forward to connecting again.
Thank you, Sally. This has been an amazing conversation and I've really enjoyed speaking with you. And thank you so much for listening, whoever's out there listening.